Okay, today let's speak on risk. A lot of people think that risk is two-dimensional, but on risk IQ, which is risk intelligence, you are meant to understand that risk is subjective to your own personal situation, not the other way around, meaning it's not two-dimensional. So to illustrate this point, let's speak on two friends, which they were invited for opportunity, investment opportunity, and the opportunity is that if you commit 100,000, the potential reward, the upside would be 500,000. So on the risk reward scale, you think is a very good risk because actually you have five times upside versus the downside. So, but risk is subjective to your own personal situation, which means if you commit that 100,000 right now, what do you have left? Because remember, whenever we are talking about risk, uncertainty is inherent, meaning the capital you committed might vanish, meaning if you don't have a potential upside, meaning the downside is going to claim the 100,000 capital, meaning um, what you actually have left after committing capital to investment and all of that is the actual risk you're taking. So you need to first and foremost survey your financial capability, your liquidity level, and once you do that, now you understand that the actual risk lies behind the scene, which means let's see it other way with this illustration. you know, Along in line with the two friends we have mentioned. So let's assume that the two friends now, the other one have businesses that per week it generates 100,000. So the actual risk is taking is 1 week cash flow, and the other one, let's assume the other friends it takes the person 3 months to make 100,000. The actual risk is taking is lies within 3 months, because what that simply means that if this investment should go down, or this project they want to back on to not work, and the money vanish, it will take the later 3 months before you can be able to see 100k again. So that does not mean that whenever you see whenever there's a risk, like wait, a risk, let's take, because the assumption is that you have to take risk for you to move from one state to another. You have to actually take risk, but the reality of it is that risk is subjective to your own personal situation. So when you are coming up, you are on survival mode, because the first quadrant of life is survival mode, which is you got every day to see ends meet, to um, do one or two in order to make money and be able to feed. At that level, you are not you know no, you're not capable enough of taking risk, no matter how good the opportunity it is, because it will only put you into a financial constraint, which you wouldn't want to be, because the end result, you will be pushed to borrow, and you wouldn't want to be in that position. So while you're on survival mode, and the other person, and you're able to save up 100,000, and you know that there's no cash flow, um, that can easily get back, the loss, capital, if you have to commit any, it's not best time to consider risk. So at that moment, you just need to study more about the business you want to venture into, the investment you want to venture into, get busy with your career, and as you edge up in that mode and be able to save up and limit unnecessary expenses, and only buy things that are need, not want. There are things that are need, um, not want. So what does it mean for things to be labeled need? Need is things you can't do with that. So it's just like somebody who have you have television in the parlor, you have television in the room. It's unnecessary, because at the moment you're still you know fighting on survival mode. You can just use one to be able to get news, or if you have laptop, instead of subscribing here and there, you can subscribe just on your laptop, and be able to get the news you want to, or things you want to watch, and all of that. So we have established that risk is not two-dimensional, but it's subjective to your own personal situation. So when people see risk on outward appearance, they're going to be like, hey, but you just they are committing 100,000 for 500,000, which is obviously it makes sense. But the situation here is that one person on the other hand, if that investment go bad, how long is it going to take for you to be able to get it back at the margin capital of 100,000? So that is the actual risk. So that's the reason why it's very good your startup with system that generate cash flow. So with that cash flow is just like a blood in human body. So there must be systems that generate cash flow while you work on skills that are able to uh, generate money on your own. So you must shift the energy to systems or infrastructure you build, which is independent of your own physical involvement, for it to generate cash flow. So with that, at the start of that, you can be able to do something. So now you understand the reason why you can't compare yourself to every other person out there. You can't compare yourself to your next neighbor. You can't compare yourself to even your own biological brother, because you people are on different capital margins. So if you do what they do, how long it will take for them to recoup the money? Then maybe some persons have got systems or infrastructure that you just take them within 2 days. It can generate like 2 million, 1 million, and all of that. So when they spend money, how fast it takes for the money to be refueled is the power of their cash flow, is the power of their system. So on the scale now, so you just having spending 1 million and them spending 1 million, that doesn't mean that your people are in the same cash flow quadrant. So because it might take you maybe 2 months or 1 month or 3 months to be able to see such capital. So you must make sure that you come to a level, you get to a level that you are comfortable in, understand that if you commit this capital to business, if you commit this capital to investment, for sure the rest of the months you are not going to be drinking gari, you are not going to be out of food, that the food at least is maintained. But why it's important that you do something to move from one step to another. Also understand that the risk is subjective to your own personal situation. It's not subjective, I mean, it's not two-dimensional, but it's subjective to your own personal situation. So I hope now you can have a clearer understanding of how to think risk properly. You don't just follow where online pools where they're like, how is the risk now, let's take it, or else you go back to your village. So be diligent in everything you're doing. Get more information, research to have ample of information